Friends, it is good to be back in the garage. Today, it's time to finally start tackling the old Jeep project. I've got my transmission, transfer case, bell housing, I've got my engine. Now I've got to start seeing if they go together. Follow along, let's check out what we got. Okay, hopefully you guys have seen the videos that I'm editing now where I put this thing together, but that is our Chevy 4.3 liter V6. It has been just garage rebuilt, cylinders honed, rings, bearings, new timing set, all put back together, painted up obviously in its Jeep kind of motif. And then this is a deal that I found on Facebook Marketplace. It's an original Jeep, the T90 transmission and the transfer case that goes with it, but bolted up to it is a bell housing. And this came out of a project that had a small block Chevy in it, which will bolt right up to the back of this Chevy V6. So I'm gonna get the air hose out, blow this stuff off. The questions I have with this whole setup now are, is this gonna bolt up and work perfectly in here? I got a clutch that came with that transmission, and then I have a clutch that came with a clutch and flywheel that came with the engine, obviously. So we're gonna get some of that out, do some figuring, a little measuring, and make sure that's gonna bolt up to that. And man, that's gonna really help us. Okay, one of the mysteries I have to solve is figuring out what clutch flywheel setup to go with this. This engine is a one-piece rear main seal setup, and thankfully it did come with, actually came with the transmission and clutch and flywheel all with it. And then like I said, that also came with the guy who threw in the flywheel and clutch with it. So that's what we've got over here and what we have to work with. This is what came with the transmission. This is what came on the engine. And an astute viewer is going to note right away that the hole on that flywheel is smaller than the hole on this one. So this one's set up for like a one-piece rear main seal. This one is not, for like an older style small block with a two-piece rear main seal. And remains to be a good clutch, pressure plate, flywheel, as far as I know. But this is the one I have to go with because this is the one that fits the crankshaft. So now I got to figure out if this will physically fit in the transmission, because it should, right? It should, but it is bigger. This is like a 14-inch flywheel, and this one's like an inch smaller. So I'm going to do some Muscle Mania stuff, make sure that it fits in that hole there, which hopefully it does. All right, it looks like we are in business. It'll fit inside there. And then even better, let's see if I can do this without smashing anything. Even better, the old S10 flywheel disc fits on there. So, or I'm sorry, clutch disc fits on the grooves on the transmission. So that all fits in there. That's good news because, man, honestly, I could bolt this right up. But I know better than that. I'm going to get a new clutch for it. I don't want to be putting a new clutch in this thing anytime soon. And so it's all going to fit. It's going to bolt in there. Okay, so that's really good news there. I do have to do some measurements now. Now I need to make sure that my shaft out of the transmission is going to have the right depth. If we look here, you know, from the flush into the back of the crankshaft. So I got to do some measuring on the crank and the engine and all that, and the size of the shaft and everything. And I want to make sure that's good. And it's going to have enough engagement in that. The other thing with this deal I have ambitious thoughts of are putting a hydraulic clutch on the Jeep, because these Jeeps would have come with a manual clutch with just a manual linkage in there, but I want to do hydraulic. That might be a little bit ambitious. I've seen some really cool setups where people build a little adapter plate that mounts about right there for a pusher type setup. I've also seen guys on these old Jeeps, because room is at a premium under there, to mount using the side bosses there on the transmission, a puller type slave cylinder down there, using a master cylinder slave cylinder type setup. So I don't know. I've got some parts, I've got some ideas. I might just put it back manual. But the one thing I need to address on this deal before we go too much further, or at some point here, is this. I noticed this crack, this piece here is cracked on the bell housing. So I'm gonna clean that up, and I've got some, actually I'm gonna use some JB Weld and try to get that back in there. It doesn't seem like it's structural to the whole thing, but it'd be nice to have it in there. So I'll clean that up, get that patched up. I can order up a clutch. That'll be real nice. And then I'm gonna take that flywheel down and have it surfaced before we put it all together. Before that though, I think I'm gonna take this off, bolt it up to that transmission, and just make sure that I have the good engagement there. Oh, and it doesn't go too far either. That's the other thing. I need to make sure that that is the right length. So anyway, I'm gonna do a bunch of measuring. It'll be boring. I'll bring you back hopefully when we've measured it all, and we'll figure out where we're going next. All right, guys. So I did a little bit of measuring, actually a whole bunch of measuring on the transmission and the engine to see if this is gonna all work. And it should, but I don't wanna be surprised later. So right now, I'm gonna go ahead and take this clutch and flywheel and pressure plate and everything, bolt it up to the engine, and then I'm gonna go ahead and stick the transmission to it. I might as well. That's the only way I'm gonna be able to be comfortable knowing, yes, this all works and it's fine. And when I go to stick it in the Jeep, I'm not gonna have any drama. So it's gonna be a bit of a clown show here as I got the old engine hoist and everything else. And I'm gonna start looking for bolts and all that. And I'm gonna swing this thing together. Hopefully when I bring you back, I'm in a good mood because it's successful. Okay, before we go into repairing that, I've got to do a fix for this crack right here. And the right way to do this would be to clean this up, get the TIG welder out and weld this up aluminum. But I don't have a TIG welder, and so we can't do that. So we're gonna go with plan B, which if I rifle around in my box of goodies and whatnot, right here. Steel stick JB Weld. This stuff actually rips. I've used it in some other kind of field repairs, so I'm not worried about this. This is gonna work good. But to do it, I'm gonna come in here first and take my Dremel probably, or die grinder, and I'm gonna clean out this groove and make it a bigger groove. And then clean this whole thing up. Follow the directions on this guy and lay that putty in there real nice. It'll be as good as new. All right, if you want an update of where we're at, well, first off, I patched that up. I put some of that JB Weld stuff on there, and that is hard as metal. I did a nice big groove, put that in there, caked it on good. You can see where my grooves were. Smooth that out so it's flat again. I'm confident that is not going anywhere. Now, here's where I'm at. The transmission doesn't want to fit because the shaft is looks like it's too big for the back of the crankshaft, and I believe there's a bushing there. The astute eye will see that there's some junk in there, and it's in fact bread. So I'm going to do the old try to shove bread in there to hydraulic that bushing out, and hoping it's a bushing. This ought to be good. Let's see how this goes. Okay, here goes nothing. Let's keep doing this. I was going to use grease to pack in there because I know you can use grease. I've done that before, but I couldn't find a bolt that was tight enough. So I figured grease would just kind of shoot out all over. So I used bread. And look at that, all be dipped. Huh. All right, well. Appears as though I just broke the back of my crankshaft off. Son of a gun. Okay, everybody relax. I don't think I broke my crankshaft. Let me try to get a light right there. You can see there that is bushing. So I believe what I need to do is continue to try to hydraulic the rest of it out of there. The good thing is that, yeah, obviously this has to come out something because that would not fit on that transmission. So let's continue. Let's press. Let's get the rest of that junk out of there. Aha, there we go. More of it is coming out. There we go. That's it. Now we just got to find the right bushing that'll fit on there to go on a crankshaft. All right, that's a win. Okay, so we are good. Man, I tell you, when that first piece came off, and it was just this sticking out of the back of the crankshaft, I thought I broke my crankshaft all up. But it's just this big bushing that was broken. That was good. I didn't know what I was going to do for a while there. A little light in there, you can see that's what we're dealing with. I just now have to get some measurements to find the bushing that'll fit down in there, and also fit on this with an ID that'll slide over this the transmission output shaft or input shaft. So now I can go ahead and mock up though. I can go ahead and put my clutch back on there and flex plate and clutch, just to make sure that everything's going to clear inside here and everything. Yeah, I can do that and slam it together, and then at least set it all over there in one piece and it looks together. And it's still got to come back apart because I'm going to have my flywheel surfaced and get a new clutch for it. Okay, in the world of good times I'm living in, I'm glad I'm doing this before I tried to put it in the car, in the Jeep, because here's my issue now. You won't be able to tell really. Yeah, you might be able to tell by looking in there, but my clutch is hitting the bell housing. Clutch is hitting the bell housing up here on the inside, which explains why that one has a smaller clutch, smaller flywheel. This is the bigger flywheel. I guess I'm gonna have to go back and do some figuring. I have no idea what brand this is. If you guys have watched this video and you know what brand of bell housing this is, help me out, let me know. I can't just bolt up that flywheel, which came with this setup. I know it came with it, but I can't bolt it up because that flywheel doesn't fit on this engine. So something's got to give. Before I pull my hair out the rest of the way, I'm going to wrap this up and I'm going to call it a night. I got to go to work, be out for a couple days. When I come back, we'll be ready to tackle this. Okay, first off, another vehicle in the garage. It's actually my old car, my high school car. Had it forever. My parents been storing it a couple years. Other updates. We yanked the engine transmission out of the Jeep and I sold it. Somebody came and snatched it up. So I must have had it for sale too cheap. Doesn't matter. It's gone. It's not taking up my garage. And I guess we are committed to making this happen. So here's where we are today. I'm buttoning some things up. Okay, let's back up a bit. When I tried to put this thing together before with the flywheel that was on the engine that came on the 4.3, it didn't fit. The flywheel was just too big for that bell housing. So I got a flywheel. It's the smaller one, the 153 tooth Chevy flywheel. This is for like a Chevy 305, say out of like a 1992 Camaro. It bolts onto that engine because it's a one-piece rear main seal engine, and it's small enough to fit inside that bell housing. I also didn't have it in me to put an old clutch because this clutch setup came with this transmission and bell housing. So I could have just bolted that clutch and pressure plate up to that flywheel and gone with it. But I didn't have it in me to do that. So I ordered up some parts. New clutch new clutch pressure plate. Other little things I have to work on. I have a new throwout bearing and fork to go with it, which of course doesn't fit with the old kind that was in there. It's the different type, so I had to do a little figuring on this. This was one piece. It was like that, and it was, I guess, supposed to be like on a Chevy bell housing or something that screwed in from the back. Anyway, it didn't work, so I had to take a bolt. Actually, it's an old hood pin, kind of like this one. Cut it down, shoved it in there, welded it, did the old can't figure it out, make my own deal. Can't buy one, make my own. So this piece now screws in there. I just put a little bit of anti-seize on the threads. And this piece will screw in here. Anti-seize, of course, because it's a steel bolt going into an aluminum bell housing. I don't want it to gall up. I had to use my grinder to make an angle on there so that my 11/16 wrench would fit it. But it does. So now I'm going to crank that guy in there. About like so. And that's where it's going to ride. Now I'm going to test fit my throwout bearing, fork, and I'm going to take my flywheel and clutch, which are still in boxes there, and bolt them together and go ahead and put them on this engine. If they work, I want to swing it up. I want to make sure it goes into that transmission. If they all work together, then it's take it apart, lock tight, put everything back together, and then I will probably shove that transmission underneath that Jeep and try to get it bolted up, because I think it'll be easier just to mount that, because I know that's good. That's going to locate everything. I can tie that up, and then we can swing the engine out, in and out as many times as we need to get engine mounts done. All right, I'm sweating over here because I've been struggling, working on getting the engine to mate up to the transmission. I did it with just the flywheel on. I just now bolted on the clutch. It was a struggle for some reason. It didn't really want to line up, but it does. And it's kind of a pain, but I got it on there. Now the next thing I'm going to do is try to stab this thing back on with the clutch and flywheel, clutch and pressure plate on, onto the transmission, and then we can check our throwout bearing clearance and make sure that's good. So I'll save you the pain and watch me struggle that on there, but we'll check it out once I get it bolted up. Okay, this has been quite the afternoon of experimenting. I got it hooked up. It was a real pain, but we got it to bolt together with the clutch, pressure plate, throwout bearing, all that goodness in there. As you can tell, I have a little experiment going. Depressing the clutch, and what I want you to watch here, I'm going to go ahead and rotate the engine. Put my big breaker bar on the engine and rotate it, and watch that output yoke. Okay, engine's turning, yoke is not. Now we'll come over here and we'll release our clutch. We'll release our clamp that's holding the clutch depressed. Okay, that's off. Now when I come over here and turn the engine, watch the flywheel and that yoke. Engaged. Man, that's a win, and I will take it. So apparently, with the old Jeep, with a mystery bell housing, a Camaro flywheel, and a small Chevy truck clutch will work. I did get my clutch fork from Novak Conversions, and they recommend this one going in with the manual linkage, mechanical linkage. So we're going to try that. I was going to do a hydraulic, but I'm just going to stick with the mechanical for now. So, well, this should work. All right, I'm signing off for today. Enough on this Jeep one for today. Hopefully tomorrow or the next time I work on it, I will have the transmission transfer case hung in the Jeep. Maybe. I'm thinking about doing that separate. I'm thinking about putting the transmission in there, but I might just shove it all in there together. So we'll see. You have to follow along, hit subscribe. You'll see next time on Bad Hombre Garage. Thanks for watching.